Welcome guys, gals and non-binary pals to this week's episode of Buffy Boys, your weekly review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from a queer, literary and feminist perspective. My name is Joel, one of your hosts. With me as always is your other scrappy host.
Brian, hi, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm okay, very warm. It's hot here. It's like 23 degrees Celsius, which is very warm for Ireland.
Is it 23 degrees?
It's not right now, it's currently 19, but it's 23 degrees here yesterday. It's a very battle me 23 degrees,
yeah.
Or it's very just you can't escape the heat.
It's fascinating because 23 degrees will mean different things to different people depending where in the world they're listening from. But for us, it is, you've put a frog in a pot of water and you've slowly boiled it. We are not equipped for this, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
But I did get to eat ice cream yesterday.
You did
which I'm still thinking about.
Yeah, you had a nice burger yesterday. The night before, you were like, you know what I'd love right now, because Joel does this when he's being cute. He's always, you know what I'd love?
Great all yeah.
I'd love an ice burger, ice cream, and I was like, okay. You said that every night for the last week. Are you just going to get one? And he was like, oh no, I've never said that before. I was like, no, you've said it every night.
I got it, and I enjoyed it, and it was worthwhile, but not worth this heat, this oppressive heat. So in this heat, we are here to talk about season 6, episode 15, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, As You Were. So Brian, as you always do you want to kick us off right now with a Buffy and summary?
I do. So this episode is season 6, episode 15, As You Were. It was written and directed by Doug Petrie, who last wrote and directed Flooded, and it was first aired on February the 26th, 2002. And here is your Buffy and summary. Riley returns, happily married to a co-worker in search of demon eggs. Traitor, okay. He is appalled to discover Buffy working in the burger joint and sleeping with Spike, especially when it turns out Spike is the egg dealer. He destroys the eggs and leaves. Buffy breaks with Spike.
Spike is the egg dealer.
Choo. Yeah. How are you, Joe?
Yeah, not too bad, all things considered. Every summer this rolls around, I'm like, I have no clothes that are really suitable for this weather, but also anything that is approaching casual and comfortable and suitable I've been wearing for an entire pandemic, so it's an unusual space, but yeah, not too bad. How are you, Brian?
Yeah,
Tell
okay.
our listeners how you're doing.
Yeah, okay. Busy. Moving stuff is annoying, but otherwise, yeah, fine. We gave in our notice in our apartment yesterday. That was weird. We've been here for 7 years, so it was very weird. But I'm looking forward to moving. It's gonna be good. And I'd say like the weeks of no Buffy Boys are coming up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I'd say, where we're just like, we're not going to explain to you. We don't care. Leave us alone. We're not doing an episode this week. We're so tired.
We can't. There's no internet. It doesn't. We'll be thinking about Buffy. We'll be thinking about what would Buffy do.
Yeah.
And I think what Buffy would do is just let a lot of random people out in her house and kick her out eventually.
So for the Bronze Banner this week, we're going to talk about Moments in Love, which is the season 3 of Master of None. So I'm sure we've mentioned Master of None before on the podcast, which is the Aziz Ansari show, which he has mostly directed and written from the start. The first 2 seasons were focused on his character, who's called Dev, who is a 30-something a guy in his early 30s in New York, dating and stuff. But the first season was really, really good, and the second season was just majestically, beautifully brilliant, because essentially he took a lot of inspiration from Italian filmmakers. The first episode is an extended homage to the Bicycle Thieves, and it's very clear throughout the season that he has just very grand cinematic aspirations, and it closes with one of the most beautiful tender moments in TV I can think of in a long time. But obviously then Aziz Ansari had a big issue with sexual misconduct allegation, he was the greyest of cases when it came to the sexual misconduct stuff, where I think afterwards it's basically
not all allegations are created equal, this was not a case of as kind of became more common, I think, in the subsequent sectors of that kind of upheaval. It wasn't dozens of women have come out with all these corroborated situations of like really repeated like gross behavior. It was primarily based around like one interaction he had with someone, which was I suppose, as we say, kind of, as I'm saying, on kind of a different scale, to some of the stuff which I think has been bundled up with.
Where I think what happened was that he like tried to like get it on with this woman who was not receptive to it, and she felt he persisted for longer than he should have. And she wrote a big long letter to, oh God, I can't remember which website it was. It was a feminist website, I believe. Maybe babe.com? I'm not sure. Anyway, so...
Booker's beating the crap out of himself in the hall for some reason. I think he's getting brain melted.
Oh, good. So she put this letter up on that and essentially said, like, had this crappy experience with Aziz Ansari.
Which made me uncomfortable.
It made me uncomfortable, etc. And she explained this to him afterwards, and he was like, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that was what you're experiencing. And then there was kind of like a really odd reaction from, the internet at the time, which was around 2017, 2018, where, some people were like, oh, that's totally normal behavior, it's totally fine. Other people were like, disgusted, never employ this person again. And then I think kind of like the woman in question kind of said, like, I don't think there was any... I think it was a bad date, essentially, rather than, and creepy behavior, maybe, rather than an assault. So it was an odd one. He had a comedy special a couple of years ago where he did go into it, which is actually reasonably good. I feel weird recommending something by Aziz Ansari at this point. At the same time, like, in no way do I think his actions are excusable. I think that's a really not nice thing to create a situation where another person is that uncomfortable. But I don't think that people need to do things that are specifically illegal for them to not be, accepted in like the public sphere in terms of being a creator and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. It's a complicated one.
The historical context is that this happened. There was different reaction to it, different sides.
He did apologize profusely as well. It's very unfortunate.
He did, but I feel like it's important to mention that is now part of his circumstances. But I also think that in showing appropriate weight to actually very severe and very it's important. It's important to show appropriate weight to different scales of these kind of situations, because if you lump them all together, you kind of take away the reality of them. And like, this is not, for example, a Joss Whedon situation.
No.
But it is also not a situation where he is completely without fault.
100%.
And we simply, like, for some of it, we simply don't, we don't know.
Exactly.
So I think you just go into this with an informed.
Yeah.
But it's not a kind of, a strong swear off this kind of,
What's interesting about season 3 is a real spin-off in another direction from the previous 2 seasons, which had Aziz Ansari's character as the main character. In this, he appears briefly in 2 episodes, but otherwise is entirely behind the camera. And in some ways
focuses on Lena Waithe, who's plays.
We focus on Lena Waithe, who has gained a lot of attention in the last couple of years for being like an openly lesbian black woman who is, actually I'm not sure if she identifies as lesbian specifically. I believe she does.
I'll find out what you talk about.
Yeah, sure. Who's very outspoken in political issues and just like a very fun actor, very funny, and has written quite a good number of things. And she's just a bit of a success at the moment. I remember she went viral a couple of years ago because of an outfit she wore to I think it might have been the Met Gala. Anyway, whatever. So this season focuses on her and her wife. Her
being a lesbian.
Yes.
I confirmed by Wikipedia.
Lovely. So Lena Waithe, it's character and her wife, and it's like hard to recommend more thoroughly. It's a very slow, very distinct season of TV shows. 5 episodes long. 2 of the episodes are quite long. 3 of them are very short. About their relationship, quiet moments in the relationship, the messiness of relationships, and the tenderness in it. And it's just like, it's really, really immaculately put together. And it's in some ways kind of like, oh, like Aziz Ansari is kind of hiding behind black queer women to he's fronting them in this situation because he can't really criticize them, you know.
It's an interesting thing. Like, you can definitely level that potential accusation,
but also these are the voices that we're wanting to
do. So,
yeah, these are the voices we're wanting to amplify. It's a funny one. Ultimately, like, you know, if you're looking at it as a piece of art, apart from the creator, which is almost impossible in every situation, it is like genuinely very, very good and very touching. I had a big old cry during one of the episodes last night. We were finishing it.
It's a great example of showing a queer story where it succeeds in not carrying the weight of having to be about all queer people or all lesbians.
100%.
I'm going to say something very upsetting to you though. Live on air.
Yeah.
The actor who plays the wife, Naomi Aki, is younger than us.
Fuck off.
Yeah. She was born in 1992.
Oh Christ. I'm gonna get sick.
Literally, the thing she's been in, she had her television debut in an episode of Doctor Who in 2015.
Oh, which episode?
Oh, Face the Raven.
Oh yeah, the one with Game of Thrones girl.
Yeah, apparently she's also Janna in The Rise of Skywalker, but I simply don't remember any supporting characters.
She's been in something recently then, I think, because that we noted her, because Janna from Rise of Skywalker is the one who John Boyega ends up with in the end, I believe.
I think so.
And I think we were like, oh, we saw her in something recently that we were like, oh.
But the reason why I mentioned her, not just to discuss you, is that she's kind of a revelation, I think.
She's absolutely brilliant.
It's a soft show, as in, like, it's something like, it doesn't ask too much of you. There's no great trauma. It's just a character study, but it's the kind of thing I think Netflix should be making, and which these companies should be making.
It's also visually just beautiful. It's presented in 4:3 format, which I have a real soft spot for. And if it wasn't shot in film, it's done an incredible job of replicating film qualities in its visuals. I would say it has a lot of influences from someone like Mike Leigh or other kind of like British filmmakers. Maybe a bit of, but like, it's just like, and it's full of extremely long shots and then very close attention to props and to small items that exist. Like, one episode has a coat hanger that they come back to as a coat rack, I suppose, as a visual element and through that coat rack in this home, saying, here's who has been here, here's who's leaving, here's who has passed through, communicating a lot of the emotional turbulence of a relationship. And and the
beautiful home as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't buy it. But the amount of there's a huge amount of like very long shots, completely static, and just leaving a lot of space for the performers to just do this incredibly seamless thing. It's very, very cinema verite. It's very easy to feel like you're like in the space with them and just observing a thing that's not meant to be observed, like moments of tenderness that aren't for you but are very inclusive of you. I would hugely recommend it. If you haven't watched Master of None season 1 and 2, it's so worth watching. They're short episodes and funny and incredibly touching. And then season 3 was just really, really, very, very good.
Absolutely. I 100% agree and recommend. And speaking of breakups, in this episode, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, we have a moment for our Slayer. We have a focus on her life, how all that's going, because we have Riley returns to town with his with a mission, with a purpose for her. Needs the Slayer, needs her special skills. She gets all this energy from doing that and from being needed and from being in the field, being with Riley, getting all the positives of that without any of the burden of the relationship stuff. And then hits this wall where he's married. She realizes how far she's kind of, drifting off maybe where she used to be, and particularly her being discovered by Riley with in flagrante with Spike being a low moment for her, culminating her breaking up with Spike and kind of that whole thing. So,
what did you think of the episode, Joel? What's your initial like? Oh,
I know this episode exists. I'm not super familiar with it. I'm going into it, so I was kind of interested in that. I felt like what it did was there's elements of it which were obvious to me. So I think with Sam as kind of Riley's wife, it's like, yeah, you're going to make her. They do a lot of work to make her invariably likable and clearly like not not a bad person, because, and they do a lot of work to kind of emphasize that, so that it can't be about that. It has to put the focus back on Buffy's interaction with it. I think it is useful to bring Riley back in to show a counterpoint for her to be like, oh my god, what am I doing here? Yeah. But and I think it gives maybe a better conclusion for his character in many ways than the helicopter scene. But again, there's elements of maybe slightly soap opera vibes to the whole thing that didn't quite maybe ring Buffy like to me.
Yeah, I thought it was bad. Mm-hmm. I thought it was bad. The soap opera note, 100%. There are moments where like it's people like turning shocked to camera, you know. Bad. The representation, like Buffy's reactions to things in this episode, like I understand that she needs like a breaking point, and this is, I think, the bring Riley back is an interesting idea. But yeah, the representation of Sam as being this like, oh, actually really likable, total fucking nonsense. Like she had no character. She the character she had was that everyone likes her and everyone thinks she's really cool and really hot and so cool, demon hunter. It was like ironing out that woman to just like to a tiny flattened thing that's been ironed.
Yeah, like she's by definition, she's Riley's wife.
Yeah,
like that is how we interpret her, and she is kind of they kind of roll out a like build your own Joss Whedon bag bitch character kind of thing.
So true. One of the issues I take with this episode is it really highlights the fact that like season 6 is trying to this point communicate Buffy disgusting.
Yeah.
You know, Buffy is doing gross things. She's debasing herself. She's like, you know, and what I'm getting from all this is not that the show is, not that Buffy is judging Buffy, which I know she is. It's that the show is judging Buffy for what she's doing.
Yeah.
And like as a narrative, as a text, it feels like it is, you know, really specifically judging Buffy's behavior. While like, you know, kind of putting at the beginning of the season being like, oh, listen, it's understandable because she's experienced this like, incredible trauma, and then as this show goes on being like, it's kind of gross though, isn't it? Oh, yeah.
No, I agree. I think there is a certain assumption on the part of the show that, as you say, we all feel that what she's doing is kind of embarrassing and kind of like dirty and gross. And
part of the like it's really uncomfortable as well, taken in tandem with season 2, in which, you know, if you take Buffy and say, listen, season 2 is really good because it doesn't cast judgment on Buffy for having sex. The repercussions of the sexual stuff are explored, etc., like properly, like, you know, engaging. If you take it in tandem with this, though, it kind of feels like Buffy having sex is, you know, really wrong, or like has it's like kind of, yeah, there's something judging there. It feels like the show is judging her for having sex at this point.
Yeah, and partly that's because, you know, we can remember as much lore as we want, but in terms of the stake of the show as it stands, they've done all this work to try and rehabilitate Spike as a character, and I would say arguably have scenes where you're meant to look at him and be like, why is Buffy being so mean to him?
Yeah.
So I think this storyline would work better if she was having, you know, sex that she, like, how do I want to put this? Sex that she's not enjoying, in the sense of sex that she is, while consensual, she's having sex that is deliberately, you know, I feel bad about myself, so I'm going to go and do this thing which, you know, makes me feel bad, etc. And if she was doing that with someone who Spike was clearly, demonstrably reprehensible, then that at least has some punch to it, where it's like, okay, we can say you definitely shouldn't be with this person and doing this because this is toxic. It's you're clearly doing it to punish yourself, and this person is so bad for you. But like Spike, because he's rehabilitated to the point where she can do this at all, and they're meant to have some meet cute moments, it means that it just does seem like, as you say, she's having sex with someone who maybe isn't, you know, the nicest person in the world, but like he's not a one true love kind of thing, and that is what she's meant to be embarrassed about, the fact that she's basically having casual sex.
Yeah. No, 100%. And like this episode really does communicate that like Buffy's, like, you know, her working class job that she has which is to work at a burger joint, to be able to get money to pay for her sister's food and to be able to keep their house. Like, it feels like the show is judging her for that as well. Like, you know, and it's like, you know, with the constant references to her smell and Riley being like, well, you know, you smell bad and I think that your clothes are bad, but like, you know, I still think you're cool, even though it's like, no, Buffy's lowestness, the lowness here for Buffy is not that she got a job. The fact that she got a job and is working for it, like, that's a positive thing for a person, you know? It's not something that we judge someone for. We don't say, oh, look at you, you're so shit, you know, working a minimum wage job. I think and at the same time, like, you know, Buffy, for having experienced the kind of crap she has, and then finding solace in a physical relationship with someone who, while has like a shitty past or whatever, the show has been trying to communicate is on his way to rehabilitation. Like, yeah, it's just it is just, this episode just irked me.
There is an element of depending on how you portray the facts themselves, you can do this right or wrong, but it seems like the show is trying to take the fact that she is, like, metaphorically down in the dirt, having to do, as you say, low paying jobs, having to have sex with people she's not in a one true pairing with, etc., as the kids say, that by virtue of itself is like a failure. Yeah. You know, not necessarily how she's going about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that is counterpointed by, like, you know, the show kind of lionizing all the kind of monogamous, stable relationships around her. You know, Willow's and Tara's, which has fallen apart, but they're trying to get back there, you know. Mm-hmm. And Anya's and Xander's, which is like this, like, essentially suburban dream with a supernatural kind of flavor text to it, you know. What did you think of Riley's characterization in this episode compared to where we saw him last?
Yeah, I thought it was...
This being the last time we see him, obviously.
I thought it was fine. I think it, like, you know, the thing about Riley is that Riley is standard in every way. You know, he's just a standard guy. And it's funny because they've really, like, completely erased all the stuff that he was in the coming up to his departure from the show.
Which was like a year ago.
Yeah, they keep being like, you know, Riley took a year to get over you, and yeah, like, you know, we've been married 4 months. He was so upset. It's just like, he's been gone a year. Like, you know, everything you're discussing is like, it's been a year. You know, he can't have taken a year to get over her if he got married 4 months ago. Yeah,
no, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, the timelines don't match up there.
The timelines are so bizarre in this episode. Anyway, so but like they've taken away all the stuff that was messy about his character, which I didn't like, you know, towards the end. And maybe it's just that he, you know, was in a bad relationship, or a relationship that wasn't suiting him, that wasn't working for him, and now he is the one that is, and he's kind of like lost those insecurities, which is great, you know. But otherwise fine. Like, I don't like, it made a good case for why he's not here anymore this episode. Like, he you know, he's very handsome, and I like his scar
with the requisite, yeah, I'm a black ops and now I have a scar kind of thing. Yeah,
but like, otherwise, like, he doesn't add much to it except for, you know, his speech to Buffy, which is like, you know, oh, you know, you're Buffy, you're pretty cool.
His thing was basically, you're still Buffy in spite of the fact that it was very like, we don't dislike you, we just dislike your choices. Yeah, vibe to it a little bit. Yeah, where it's like, even though you're working minimum wage and you're having sex with Spike, you're still a good person. It's like, I don't know if that's given the message you think it is. Yeah. Yeah,
but more importantly, Sam's character, just a bizarre creation in this narrative. Like, there's a part at the very end where they're leaving and they've called or they're going off, and like their mission is over. They're going off for a new mission in Burma, I think, or something, and they call a chopper. A literal rope ladder comes down from this chopper. They climb onto the rope ladder, and the helicopter flies away with them on it. But there's a moment of them like being pulled out of the shot on this ladder. And
they're not pulled into the helicopter. The helicopter basically just drags them away on the ladder. Yeah.
But it is literally the scene from Friends, where Joey's play where he's like, you know, I must leave now. Or it's what's the name? Poochie
going back to his home planet.
Poochie going back to his home planet. It is bizarre It is just like, it is the most tonally bizarre thing I've seen in this show in a long time. And it kind of just encapsulated what that character of Sam was, because like she was absolutely nothing. She comes in, she's like, oh yeah, I'm actually like a real demon hunter and killing machine, blah blah blah. She says to Willow, like, you know, oh, you can just do a bit of magic, can't you, to fix this? And Willow's like, I'm an addict actually. And then she goes ahead and apologizes profusely to Willow because she actually has a heart of gold. And, you know, Dawn doesn't like her too much because she took Riley away.
Yeah, she gets a moment with everyone to show how cool she is with
They recently got married, so she's able to give advice to Xander and Anya about getting married, even though Xander and Anya have now, I'm pretty sure, been engaged for longer than these two have been married.
Yeah.
Or sorry, than these two have been have known each other.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you think she is like that, or do you think it's Buffy's perception of her, if you know what I mean? Because I think it is also meant to kind of be like Buffy seeing this new girlfriend, be like, oh, she's what you wanted me to be in every way, just like able to do all these things, yeah.
I don't think there's enough good writing there to communicate anything other than like, this character is actually really cool, and yeah, she makes Buffy insecure because it's all the things Buffy couldn't have been and stuff like that. But like, it's just like, well, like, okay, because you've not just done that through another way as opposed to creating a character who has no traits.
Fair. Well, what do we think of the dissolution of the Spike Buffy relationship? Because as I think we've alluded to before, we do see her kind of have a moment of post-dusk clarity with Spike. Goes to him very specifically dressed, not in a style that mirrors his style, but in a kind of a frilly pink top and denim jeans, I want to say. Mm-hmm. And says that, like, a fairly cohesive, I think, statement, which is, I do want to be with you. It's just not good for me to do that. And I'm not going to be able to love you, and it's not fair for me to say that I will. And calls him William and lets him down, and that kind of lets him know, oh, it actually is over. Yeah. Yeah,
it's one of the two times that she's called him William, the other one being No Place Like Home. But yeah, no, it's I thought the breakup scene was like reasonably well handled, and definitely the bright spot of this episode, and like a reasonably like emotionally weighty moment of her saying, listen, yeah, this is not good for either of us, let's call it there. And I think, you know, her starting to regain control of her life a little bit, but like making decisions and not feeling like, you know, like caught up in the whims of stuff. And, you know, obviously I have criticisms of that as a concept here, where she's just a person who's having casual sex. You don't need to make it as if she's like debasing herself every time she does. But, you know, it's grand. You know, I thought it was a pretty good scene. What do you think of it?
Yeah, it's interesting. It was like one of the first times in a while that I've looked at Spike's character and kind of seeing the man that was in there. Because we get that a lot more with other vampires, I think, particularly Angel, the sense that he was a man and then became this thing. And in some senses, Liam is still part of who he is. But with Spike, he's always just Spike. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I felt with this, I think he kind of portrayed it very well. It's like, oh, there is this kind of this hopeless romantic, this Victorian romantic who is in there underneath all of this. Yeah. It's actually strange because like there's an inconsistent thing with vampires in the show about whether or not they take on a nom de guerre, you know, because obviously Angel and Spike do. I think Darla is kind of implied that Darla probably isn't her.
Oh, I never thought that.
Potentially, before. I think some of that flashback stuff in Angel was implying that that's not who she was in life, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. The Master and all those people, obviously, like significant titles, but then like your Drusillas and your Kakistos and all these kind of people, that's just their names, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Yeah, I thought it was kind of, it had merit to it. And actually, I always think that Buffy and Spike, I think they play their scenes well together. I think they do have chemistry in terms of how they interact with each other.
Yeah, I think so too.
So yeah, I like that. But yeah, I do think otherwise. I enjoyed the monster of the episode. She was kind of like this like threatening demon kind of thing. It has some decent CGI and kind of a bit of like, you know, and I felt what Buffy felt, which was like, okay, we have a threat, we have something to focus. Because even she's like, I've just been dealing with some nerves and I don't really have, like, Buffy's have for so long has had this like driving thing year on year, like clockwork, except for during the summer. And now without that, I think she does kind of need that to know who she is a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. So, come here. The other thing we said we talked about is Xander and Anya here, because obviously they're going to come into sharp focus in the next episode. It's absolutely wild to think that that Xander is going to do what he does next episode, because they have a lot of touching moments, or not touching moments. They have some nice moments into this episode where at one point they're saying, Xander's like, I'm really dreading the wedding. It's going to be annoying, but what I'm not dreading is being married to you. Mm-hmm. That's the good part. I get to go through the wedding and get to the marriage. And Annie's like, oh, that's nice. And it feels like such a 180 from where he gets to in the next episode.
Yeah, it doesn't quite have the same, like, say with Tara and Willow's relationship has like a very, very clear arc of up and down and then shock, But with Anya and Xander, they tend to just have like a collection of interactions. Mm-hmm. That could go either way. Like, you could, as you say, go from this and chart a course where they are solid as a rock after this kind of stressful initial period, and then obviously it suddenly comes apart. But I feel like that they still, I think when we counterpoint it with even Sam and Riley, who got together over such a short period of time, I feel like you still don't get a sense of Anya and Xander that they really thought about like why they want to be together. Yeah. Like, given the fact that Xander obviously proposed under threat of death, Mm-hmm. I think that's the fundamental thing that's undermining them, is that they don't have a real motivation for why they're together.
I agree. Yeah. No, it's an odd one, and I suppose we'll see it next week. I saw a great TikTok during the week, which was a girl. I showed it to you already, but it was a girl who was like, "Hey, why are we surprised by the Joss Whedon stuff? Given in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, his like author insert character was Xander fucking Harris. Like, surely we should have seen this coming." And so true. Anyway, should we move into the dusting?
Absolutely.
Great. So here are a couple of Buffy bits for you. This is the final appearance of Riley, R.I.P. Mr. Finn. He does look very good in this episode, though, so well done to him for that. Spike is rating on human bondage. On human bondage. Oh, I'm getting confused now. On Human Bondage, I think, by Somerset Maugham. In this episode, we have previously talked about that book at length in The Freshman, so it's worth looking back on or listening back to that if you want to. And yeah, like, there was very little critical stuff written about this episode, though Mark Field does note that it is his least favorite episode of Buffy. So there you go.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far, but I think it's pretty bad. And then I would also just note that, when the vampire is attacking Buffy at the very beginning of the episode, I was thinking, is the reason that he doesn't want to eat her, he's like, oh, you've been eating the double beam palace stuff, maybe that's because it's plant based and he would like it more if it was like meat based, because that's bloody. I don't know. There's a thought I had. And then also the military music coming back with Riley, I was like, oh, I hated this shit. I'm so glad it's gone.
I forgot about that shit.
Do you have any Buffy Bits, Joe?
Yeah, so this is the last foray we see for Buffy into trying to get a college education. She gets a rejection, which I think is actually classic Buffy in some ways. She gets a rejection letter from returning to UC Sunnydale on the basis that she's just applied after the deadline, Yeah. It was quite sad. Like, she really makes some solid effort to try and do that, and it's just not for her,
Yeah, it's sad.
It's just not coming together. But I do think there's an element of pathos to that, because it was like, there was a period where it was quite an exciting part of her life, and then it just became this like weight where it's like, I have to keep trying to go back to that at some point, They do a good job of just conveying that I think the double meat palace food seems absolutely disgusting, because like, she's bringing it home to Dong, and it's just like this like squashed cold burger, and then she's like saying, I could bring the fisherman's nuggets with cheese next time. Disgusting. And it's just like stomach churning. I thought we saw some interesting stuff here where Dong was actually taking a bit of a maternal role at one point. She was like kissing Buffy on the cheek and saying it was going to be okay and don't worry about it and all that. So I think it's kind of some interesting dynamics. Some interesting dynamics there. Oh yeah, I was like, what was this now about? Dick ate leg spread. It's because when Riley bursts in on Spike, they make a point of the fact that he just turns around naked on the bed or on the coffin and just like completely like spread for a medical examination in front of Riley. Bizarre energy.
It's very threatening.
Yeah.
Or inviting, depending on who you're talking to.
Oh yeah, Anya and Xander have monogram towels in their bathroom, which I actually thought looked like the bathroom in your family home. Your own.
Good to know that.
You're the one near your bedroom with the glass paneling.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but they had it was a pink towel and it was like a brown A and a brown X on these monogram towels. Terrible.
Yeah.
In terms of, we have a look at fashion.
Yeah, sure. So I quite liked Buffy's yellow duffel coat at the beginning of the episode. I thought it was quite nice. I don't understand why the vampire at the beginning of the episode has a peace symbol stitched onto his jacket. It's a bit odd.
For peace.
As we noted, Riley's scar is nice, but his weird Kevlar outfit looks like cheap rubber.
Yeah, they try to say it's lightweight Kevlar, but really it's a cheaply produced costume.
Yeah. I did not like Willow's dorky sweater with kind of I feel like that has a name, but like the kind of like the diamond kind of front pattern thingy. And Xander's haircut in this episode is just so bad. It just looks like someone like ran a razor over it to make it all exactly the same length. He just looks really bad.
Square.
He just looks generally just bad in this episode. I think
but he is conveying that he is, a little bit disheveled. He is definitely nervously or habitually eating throughout the episode.
Yeah.
He looks like he hasn't slept well. I think, weddings aren't meant to be that stressful, are
No, they're really not. He is wearing a reasonably nice check brown shirt though, which I was like, you know what, it doesn't look good on him, but actually you would wear well, Joe.
Oh, thank you.
And then he's wearing a brown leather jacket later on in the episode, and it just looks like patent leather, like incredibly oversized. It did not look good on him. I did not like it. Do you have any fashion notes there, Joe?
No, I actually think you cover off everything.
Good.
I just in my fashion notes often refer to Giles, who we miss.
Oh God. Soon. Okay. Death count. Do you have a death count first, Joe?
Yeah. So Buffy stakes that peace vampire in the opening scene, launching her stake from out of frame like a cannon.
It travels directly forward.
Yeah, impaling him. She also breaks the neck of one of the Sorority demons, and then throws a bandolier of grenades into Spike's crypt and kills the eggs that, oh, by the way, he was harvesting these eggs kind of thing.
Yeah, because he is the doctor.
They said that a lot for can we get it? He's the guy,
Mm-hmm.
That's our death count.
Good. Okay, a rating.
Oh, maybe like a 6.1 leathery eggs.
Yeah, talk about that.
I think it's probably inconsistent with things I've rated similarly previously, but I thought that, at this point I'm kind of measuring against the episodes around it. I thought there was nothing particularly good about the episode. There was some good interactions, and Sarah Michelle Gellar did a perfectly good job throughout, and I liked the monster of the week. But that was kind of it.
Yeah.
It was happy to see my friends again, but nothing happened. Yeah.
I had genuine problems with the episode. I don't think it's awful by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think any episode of Buffy is truly awful.
Well, go fish.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure if even that is truly awful. I think in another TV show it could be actually a reasonable highlight. Anyway, but I'm going to give it 5.6 Cajun Fiestas out of 10. I didn't like it very much. I think there's plenty to like in it, amongst the messiness, but there is a lot of messiness, unfortunately. And thankfully, I think the rest of season 6 should be reasonably good fun. Not good fun at all, but reasonably high quality writing and reasonably movementy,
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of out of the doldrums when it comes to season 6 from this point onwards.
Great.
Okay, should we move into the Cordelia chase?
Yeah, so we got quite an adventure episode over here in the Cordelia chase. Loyalty. Cordelia has been chased out of town. She's on holidays. It's actually the first time that there's been no member of the original team except for Angel, in the show. But we have a very kind of specific driving force for the episode, which is that Hulks has built his kind of paramilitary group out of various disenfranchised people who've lost loved ones to vampires, and they are set on dividing and conquering Angel's investigations. And alongside this, Wesley has come up in this prophecy that Angel's going to kill Connor and is trying to do everything he can to get around that. And as we know with this season where he goes to, is I guess to a point where he becomes convinced that he can't do anything about that. He becomes so like destroyed by it that he takes Connor away from Angel, and that kind of ruins their relationship forever. And I think he does a great job in this episode of conveying that he kind of pursues all these different avenues he is getting. We said this when Wesley was introduced. He starts off so nebbish, and it's like, how can you actually develop this character? Where by this point we were like, he has actually been the team's leader for a while. He's very convincingly directing people, ordering people to give him information, all that kind of stuff. A very bizarre but fun thing where he has to go and ask supplication from a demon god in a statue, but the statue turns out to be a burger mascot.
It was weirdly like menacing.
Yeah, it's like turns into this giant CGI mascot, and he tries to implore it for information, etc. And just you're really coming to the point where he is like, he puts himself in a number of situations with Hulks and stuff where he's like, kill me, but like leave Connor and Angel alone, you know, because Angel's so excited throughout the episode about being a father. And
he's talking about taking Connor. Connor's going to be an ice hockey playing kid because the games are all indoors and at night. Yeah,
I thought that was charming. And he has some great lines with like when he confronts Hulks, who is this like threatening force, and Wesley's like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't catch that because you were doing the whole menacing deep voice thing." You know, so he's like he's getting this like Buffy universe power, you know.
Yeah.
And most of the other cases in the episodes basically turn out to be various Hulksians, which was something which I coined from whole cloth, and then it turns out it was in the credits, which I was happy with. But then pretending to
I'd call them
Hulksers. Then pretending to be clients as just a way to get close to the team, and then they eventually catch them out on that. So like it's a nice bit of tension through the whole thing. Lila's being brought into it as well.
For some reason again, and now is like, yes, I will kill Angel with you with no real reason.
Yeah, and we also see kind of Fred gets an opportunity to Fred can go and get I don't believe the relationship for a second. I don't like it, but Fred gets an opportunity to like kill some vampires, and Hawks is basically like, look, these people are not empowered, but they managed to do this because they're smart, and we should actually be using that against them. I think all that tension is really reasonably well conveyed. So yeah, I would probably give this I think 8 actually. I think I really like this episode.
Cool. I'm gonna give it a 7 Phil Hammond's Gestures.
Yeah, I'm going to 8 Phil Hammond's Gestures because I really I think it's a really solid plot, this prophecy, and Wesley running out of options to do anything but betray Angel. I think it has classic pathos to it.
It does.
I think Alexis Denisof does a great job with it. So yeah,
I agree. Yeah, I think it's a strong 7 for me, but like it's definitely meandering at times. I think it doesn't always know what it's doing. It doesn't always know what the purpose of a scene is or the purpose of the episode is, and that's fine. It makes for enjoyable. Like, let's be real, this season of Angel has been a real. Like, it's been more fun to watch Angel than Buffy this season.
Yeah, and I like Hulks as a villain because I like when they go a direction where it's like it's not that he is more powerful, which is also kind of what happens with Willow as well. Like, Dark Willow is obviously powerful, but the issue is not that she's powerful; it's that she's Willow. You know? So I do like that. So yeah, I think that's probably us for this week.
Good.
Will we be here next week?
Yeah, I think next week will be fun.
Yeah, we'll be here next week. We'll try obviously not to be too infrequent or anything like that, but we know we have your understanding in this changeable time.
I think we've been pretty good about like releasing episodes reasonably frequent or reasonably like consistently. I think a lot of people who do podcasts more frequently, I think are like that's their employment, you know. And people who are doing it casually the way that we do, because if you can't guess, we actually do not make any money from this podcast.
We actually pay to do it.
We pay so much.
It's meant to work.
But it is. I think we've been good about. Like, I think a lot of people who do that like reasonably casually end up being like, you know, yeah, I'm not doing it this week because it's fine. It's not my job. I don't have to do it this week. And I think we could probably take a little leave out of that.
Learn a lot about our work ethic and ourselves through the process. But
yeah.
It is a great opportunity to hang out with you guys and talk about Buffy as well. So we will be as consistent as possible in these very interesting times. But for this week, that's all from us here at BBHQ. If you enjoy this episode, please let us know.
That's pronounced back.
Tell your friends, tell your Uncle Rory who is sleeping on your couch.
Please do.
And we will see you next time on Buffy Boys.
See us.
Cheers.